But welcome everyone to the CTE Grant Administrators meeting this afternoon. We are excited that you are with us today as we provide some important updates. And so just to give you an overview of today, we'll start with some welcome and introductions so that you know who the folks are from the Nebraska Department of Education. We'd also love to know who's joining us today. So as I start talking, feel free to put your name and your district into the chat. We'll also do some grant updates and reminders for both the state and Perkins CTE grants, discuss some data and research that has been top of mind in the news regarding the funds, regarding career and technical education as a whole, and that will impact your programming as well. And then we will discuss the revision and especially the revision refresh process that will occur this year. We'll finally share some resources and support, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask us some questions while we have everybody here too. And so as I've shared, please introduce yourself, your name and your school district or your community college into the chat. And I'm going to ask the folks from NDE to share their to not share their screen, to come off on your cameras, and then I'll call you out to introduce yourselves. And so my name is Sydney Kobza. I serve as the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education. Amanda, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Cole. I'm a state CTE specialist, grant specialist.
Terry.
Good afternoon. I'm Terry Slope, and I'm the Perkins Grant Manager.
Therese.
Hello, this is Therese Marzouk, and I serve as Workforce Partnership Specialist.
Kevin.
Hello, I'm Kevin Dahlman, and I'm the CTE Data Specialist.
Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron Jones, the Skilled and Technical Science Career Field Specialist and Skills USA State Advisor.
Jackie.
I'm Jackie Garrison, the Communication and Information Systems Career Field Specialist and FBLA State Advisor.
Melinda Jean-Baptiste.
Hi, I'm Melinda. I'm the School Counseling Specialist.
I don't know why I said your full name, Melinda. Sorry. Sean.
Yeah, Sean Young. I serve as the Computer Science and Technology Education Specialist.
And our fearless leader, Dr. Katie Graham.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Katie Graham, Administrator for the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education.
You'll also see we have several staff members, and hopefully those are familiar faces. We have some new members joining us. And so Carol Malcolm, she serves as the Business Marketing and Management Career Field Specialist. You just met Melinda. Addie is one of our amazing office associates. And then Carrie Appleby has joined us as our post-secondary readiness specialist. And so we will move into these grant updates, and I'll turn it over to Amanda Cole.
Thanks, Sydney. Okay, we're really excited today to talk about our new and updated CTE grants webpage. I'm going to put in the feed. Let's see here if I can. The education, the CTE grants page, and so that will be readily available, and that's all things our CTE grants that we have. Next slide, please. For our 2026 updates, we have revision refresh, which we'll talk more about, and that'll be due in the spring. We have budget amendments for both grants, and that's ongoing, but it's due by May 1st. We have your annual grant narrative for Perkins for 25-26 is due in May, as well as both budget templates for both grants, the state as well as Perkins for 26-27 is due in May. We have our secondary accountability data due for Perkins in June 15th. We have our end of program fiscal year, and for both grants that ends June 30th, and you can't obligate funds after that date. We have final requests for reimbursements for both Perkins as well as the state is September 1st, so that you can't request reimbursements after September 1st. And then we have our post-secondary accountability data due for Perkins on October 15th. Next slide, please. We're excited. We have our budget templates for we don't have them out for 26, 27. We have 25, 26 out there, and we only accept our official budget templates. And the expenditures must be aligned with your revision outcomes, and they all must be pre-approved prior to purchase, including those requested through amendments. Next slide, please. And talking about pre-approval. So everything that are grant expenditures for the state, for Perkins and revision all require pre-approval through purchase or obligation of funds. And pre-approval is activated when your budget template is approved in GMS or a grant amendment is approved in GMS. And those reimbursement requests for expenditures that aren't pre-approved will not be allowable. Next slide, please. So amending grant budgets. Let's see here. We accept them to amend the approved Perkins budget following existing NDE policies, including navigating to the amendment tab within GMS and providing a detailed description of requested changes. If needed, additionally, make changes within the GMS budget tab if you're changing from 600 to 300s or such. You will update your approved budget template, the Excel document, and those are available through that website that I listed. And for newly requested items, we want you to add the necessary rows and highlight the additions in yellow. But if you're going to remove items, we would like you to strike through those items. Upload the amended Excel budget template into GMS, and please include amendment in the title. For example, you have your school district 25 Perkins budget amendment. As a reminder, all expenses must be aligned to and be justified as a result of your local revisions process. And this is a bit of a new policy. We're doing everything that we can through GMS and trying to eliminate other sources so that we have a record that we can track expenditures. Next slide, please. So general accounting reminders. We have all your documentation must be dated within the grant period. So July 1st through June 30th, or after the GAN was issued, or in the federal case, it's now the grant subaward notification or GSN. We want you to review your coding now and be sure to submit an amendment if needed prior to grant closeout. We realize that budget adjustments are often necessary before closing out the grant. And if you need to do budget changes through categories, you can do that throughout the grant year so that any possible amendments can be submitted by May 1st. We wanted to talk just a quick bit about working meals. And so the documentation must include, it has to have a required sign in, sign out sheets of all persons attending meeting during working lunch. It has to have a detailed agenda of the meeting, including sections to be covered during the working meal. A detailed invoice of charges for the working meal, including how many lunches served, what was purchased, and the cost per lunch. We also need a written explanation answering the 5 required questions as to why the working meal was necessary, signed by the authorized representative or administrator. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Graham.
Thanks, Amanda. Another exciting updated reference document for you is our CTE Grant Administrator's Guide. This replaces the Perkins Grant Management Guide, as we now have multiple funding sources for CTE. This document reflects that. So you'll find guidance for all 3 CTE grants, Perkins, State CTE, and the Revision Action Grant. And you'll see additional requirements listed in there. Again, not too much new, just better organized and updated. One specific section we spent a lot of time updating was the allowable and non-allowable uses of funds section. Nothing was changed, but we provided more clarity across grants. So as you know, there are some additional flexibilities with the state CTE grant. So it's really easy to see now if you navigate over to this document, which is on that same CTE grants webpage, what is and isn't allowable by grant. And if you have any recommendations or see any issues, definitely reach out to us. This is a living document. At the end, you'll see a change summary. So any new changes or additions will be noted all the way at the end. Wanted to spend also just a moment, as I'm sure it's top of your mind, as it's top of our mind, what's happening at the national level relative to the government shutdown. Wanted to ease all concerns, especially related to Perkins. We're really fortunate that Perkins has traditionally been forward funded. And what that means is that our funds were secured given the continuing resolution that was passed last March. So NDE has already received all of our Perkins funds for the 25-26 year. So you can rest assured the expenditures you're making and what you have budgeted for, we will have those funds when you elect to submit your reimbursement claim. And it's never too early to submit that reimbursement claim. Just a plug. If you've spent it, go ahead and ask us to reimburse you. We'd be happy to do that. All right. Moving into some other exciting things happening at both the national and state level with some CTE data and research. Thought this was a great opportunity just to share some new findings that have come out over the past couple months relative to all of the work we're doing collectively. Through the Center for Workforce and Education out of Georgetown, I always get those mixed up. They were able to identify that by 2031, 72% of jobs will require some form of post-secondary education and training. Sometimes I like to say this could be 1, 2, 4, or more years of post-secondary education. This would include industry recognized credentials of value, short-term training programs, 2-year programs, 4-year programs, and everything in between. One thing we continue to get a lot of questions about from districts and colleges and just other stakeholders relates to credentials. So we wanted to share a little bit of the research that's come out recently around credentials and the momentum they continue to gain. This summer, a research study was released that identified 1.1 million credentials that are available right now to learners. But of those, only 12% delivered significant wage gains. Oftentimes you'll hear industry recognized credential. Hopefully you noted I added of value when I talk about them, as we all want to make sure when we are promoting these opportunities for learners or trying to align credentials to the programs you're offering locally, that they have some tangible recognize the value to them. And value could mean a lot of things. Oftentimes it's wages, it could be guaranteed interviews or preferential hiring or opportunities to advance. But we want to make sure that they are of value. Because there's 1.1 million options, and I think this number is actually low, it continues to grow, learners, they have found, are really facing a chaotic marketplace of what and where and how and where that alignment is given so many different options. This research report found that top tier credentials, what they consider top tier, are those where there is an annual wage gain. And there's also opportunities for career switching and advancement within those careers. However, bottom tier credentials provide few, if no benefits. And when you dig into it, a lot of the credentials we talk about often would be considered bottom tier. So this was really helpful information as you're thinking about how to align your programs to credential opportunities, thinking about what is that value, what is that, what are those signals you want to make sure students are aware of as we promote and they sit for and pass all of these different assessments. Advanced CTE at almost the same month also released a national scan of state policies related to credentials. They found that 44 states had publicly available lists of industry recognized credentials, and 34 of those states actually had a formal process to approve credentials. Nebraska is not one of those 44 states, as many of you know, but I will share the momentum is growing here as there is recognition as this is a viable post-secondary pathway, and we are hopeful to see some change in this space where we do have a mechanism and policy to vet, approve, and revalidate credentials that align with Nebraska's industry needs. A couple other facts here about this national scan. Of those 44 states, 27 have a process for revalidating the credentials, but only 14 of those 44 states incorporate wage information in that revalidating process. 13 states reported that they haven't removed any credentials from their list in the past 5 years. Also, from those 44 states, only 15 can track leading indicators around credentials, such as enrollment or pass rates. So certainly some gaps there when we're trying to, again, signal the importance and outcomes of learners who obtain these credentials. Again, only 8 states of those 44 reported the ability to access data that demonstrates the outcomes of the credentials, like those wage and employment records. One exciting new resource through Advanced CTE, they have stood up a first of its kind dashboard that signals employer requested credentials both by career cluster and state. So of course, because Nebraska doesn't have a recognized list, if you search by Nebraska, you won't find anything yet. But if you search by career cluster, this is a really good place to start if you're trying to identify those high value industry signaled credentials that employers are looking for. We haven't really had this before, and I know it's not Nebraska specific yet, but it's a really wonderful place to start if your school or college is interested in aligning your programs to recognize credentials. All right, we talk a lot about learners, and learners are important. And hopefully you all saw the incredible announcement that Governor Pillen signed an executive order this past Tuesday, launching the Good Life, Great Careers initiative. As you can see here, he says that now more than ever, we need to create and align workforce programs that make sense for Nebraska's communities, especially as we double down on investments we make in young people of our state. A couple ways we've seen this already kind of emerge. They are launching an Office of Registered Apprenticeship at the Department of Labor. And we've seen a lot of industry groups, specifically the manufacturers, come together to find a way to offer more opportunities to young people to see the great viable options they have in the state. And if anything, we just see this as another recognition of our work continuing to gain momentum and be in the spotlight, and just how important career and technical education is in that workforce development system. So a lot more to come. It just happened this week, but we're pretty excited again at the signal. It speaks to the funding. This is now our 3rd year of categorical state funding. Our work is vital, it's critical, and the recognition continues to grow. With that said, though, thinking about every student, wanted to share, since we're in the data section, a little bit just about our school membership, and again, why this is so important, why the work we do is so critical. If you take a look at the statewide totals, you'll notice that our high school classes are larger than our elementary school classes. So we have a declining student membership, and this is one of the #1 reasons employers say it's difficult to hire, is that there's a lack of applicants. So we have to be very intentional about aligning our education and workforce efforts to make sure, first and foremost, learners have direction and a great opportunity for a self-sustaining and family-sustaining wage. And with any luck, that'll be right here in Nebraska. If we look at these numbers and project out a little bit into what our projected workforce demands will be, and then what our workforce numbers would be, that gap between the two will continue to grow. And we'll really see it hit with our current school membership, unless something really drastic changes and we have an influx of residents around 2038. So businesses are already looking out to see, what does it mean when our population does not continue to grow relative to workforce. And as we know, we can't grow industries and we can't grow opportunity if we don't have a workforce. And our workforce already, I think, is #1 in the nation for how many jobs we work in full-time employment. So it's critical that we focus on every learner and make sure every learner has those great opportunities and know what they are right here in the state. A lot of those opportunities that are already provided relate to earning post-secondary credit in high school through dual enrollment. If you're not familiar, which I hope you are, the Nebraska Statewide Workforce and Education Reporting System, otherwise known as NSERS, is a really incredible okay, I can't say that word today, is the way we use our statewide longitudinal data system. And they not only have opportunities for partners, which all of you would be in our post-secondary institutions, to dig into those data, but they also produce special reports. One that came out, I think just a week or two ago, was about chronic absenteeism. This one I wanted to highlight relates to dual enrollment. And many times in the reports, they do signal out career and technical education specifically. So if you are looking for more information or data or research outcomes, please take a look at NSERS, their website. They have a public-facing website. They also have a secure portal. Hopefully some of you have been able to access that. It's pretty incredible and robust. But you can see here just a couple outcomes about dual enrollment course type, comparing CTE to non-CTE. And then within CTE, what are those courses? What are those most taken CTE courses for dual credit? And we have the link there down at the page if you wanted to check that out as well. All right, moving into revision refresh. So revision is not new and neither is refresh. It's kind of nice talking about this process when everyone has gone through it multiple times at this point. So we've done revision, the full revision, I think twice, and this will be our second time doing refresh. Every district and community college in the state that wants to operate as an approved CTE program and receive any type of CTE funding, be it federal or state, must complete the revision needs assessment process and update it every 2 years. Refresh is that update process that we implement in the off years. This is really the opportunity for districts and colleges to take a look at what they reported 2 years ago, reflect on any new available data, re-engage with stakeholders, and evaluate progress towards achieving those goals and desired states that you articulated in revision, and determine if there's any modifications that you need to either your budgets or approved applications. Oftentimes we get requests for equipment or wanting to add new programs, and we have to go back and look at those revision results. This is the time if you want to make any adjustments or open up funding to other areas that you didn't originally signal in revision or in the last revision 2 years ago. This would be the time to justify it based on data, based on stakeholder engagement, so you can then use your funds in that way. And I'll reiterate it again, only the needs identified through revision are eligible for CTE grant funding. So again, that's why this is the perfect time to add or change and of course justify based on data and stakeholder engagement where you all want to go, and then you will then be allowed to use both state and federal funds on those areas. As a reminder, there's 6 elements that you review through the revision and refresh process. They're up here on the screen. They align very closely with your budgets and Perkins applications and the components of high quality CTE. So what does the process look like this year? We're saying it's 5 steps. The first step is to review what you did in 2024. Look at what you had as outcomes. What were those action steps and goals that you wanted to implement to achieve your desired state, whatever that may be? Your second step will be to gather and analyze any updated data, if there is any, and information. We know 2 years isn't that long, but sometimes new things happen or new industries come in, or students have different needs, and you can see that reflected in other data. Step 3 is re-engaging stakeholders. So just like revision, there's the exact same list of required stakeholders, and we have a verification sheet that you'll need to complete to show that you have re-engaged those stakeholders. One thing we definitely want to note is we don't think you should do something completely new. Most systems already have processes in place to engage advisory committees or parents or business and industry. Leverage those existing processes to ask questions and make sure that your outcomes and goals are still relevant. And if you need to make any changes now, refresh is the perfect opportunity to do that. Then, based on all that new information and review of what you did last time, you will complete a series of worksheets. I'm going to show you in just a second. We're essentially asking you to answer 2 questions for every element. And that's what the worksheets are. And then along with the stakeholder verification. And then you'll submit those worksheets to NDE. So let me show you what those are going to look like. So here's an example for the worksheets, each one looks the exact same. The only thing that'll change on the worksheets are the elements in question. So here's an example of the first question for every element. After you review your 2024 priorities and desired states, provide a written reflection on the progress you've made to date. So address whether your current state has shifted and whether or not you've reached your desired state. So this is really just a status check. Where are you? How are you coming along with what you said you were going to do relative to your action steps and goals? And then the second question is, based on any new data analyses or data available and re-engaging stakeholders, provide a short written reflection on any adjustments you may need to make to your priorities or action steps. So again, do you have any new areas you wanted to explore? Any of those action steps you need to change? Of course, we'll want you to justify that based on the data and based on stakeholder engagement. But if you realize there are no changes needed, you'll just write that as your explanation, that based on the analyses you've done and the stakeholders you've engaged, your plan 2 years ago still holds, and you don't wish to make any changes. So you'll answer these 2 questions for each of the 6 elements, and that's essentially the refresh process. The stakeholder engagement verification is the exact same list. You'll provide information about how you engaged and who you engaged with. And of course, if there is a stakeholder group that's not relevant to your particular context, you'll just provide a very brief explanation of why that's the case. You'll then submit all of those worksheets to NDE. Wanted to mention a couple things. Just like we've done in the past, we plan to host work days or technical assistance meetings to help you all work through these. We're also available by phone, email, and give us a call. We'll come out to see you if you need. We're here to help. We know sometimes district administration changes. Sometimes you weren't a part of what happened 2 years ago, and there is a big shift. Our staff is here to assist, so please don't hesitate to reach out. And the other 2 questions you're probably asking is, when is this going to be launched and when is it going to be due? It should be launched in the next few weeks. And we will make sure that is a loud announcement, but you can kind of see here what questions we're going to ask. You don't need to wait for the worksheets. You can start looking at your last submission and thinking through any new data or stakeholders you want to engage to see if you need to make any adjustments. And the verification for stakeholders is the exact same one you did in revision. So nothing is new or shifted on that front, but we will certainly make a loud announcement when those are available on the website. They will all be due in late spring. So you'll have ample time to get these done and submit them to NDE. And of course, that'll all be in the same announcement. Looking through here to see if I have any revision questions. Doesn't look like we do. All right, then I will turn it over to Sydney to share some additional reminders and support.
Yeah, so Katie touched on a little bit. We're only a phone call, an email, a car drive away. And so we provide technical assistance in a lot of different areas, not just with the grants, but in programming, professional learning, Rule 47 career academies. And so if there's any career and technical education questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to our team. All of our information is on that website that Amanda shared as well. And as I just want to reiterate, the slides and the recording will also be posted on that website too. So if you're wanting to get to that dashboard or those places, all of these will be shared after the meeting. Some really cool opportunities for that the Nebraska Department of Education's Budget and Grants Management team has created are these webinars and trainings regarding some of the specifics around the grant. And so if you think about time and effort, if you're having questions around submitting those forms, what those forms all entail, we have some great recordings all on this website. The asterisks, those 2 trainings are upcoming this week. And so if you're interested in attending those, or if you have staff folks that need to attend those, please don't hesitate to register and utilize those resources on this webpage too. They have some great one-pagers as well. If you would rather read than sit through a video, they have a ton of great resources. We also have additional resources regarding GMS through our Canvas catalog, as well as some of the other federal program websites at the bottom. The one thing I do want to stress for our Perkins folks on the call is you heard the term pre-approval a lot today. Please make sure that you are working directly with your monitor for that approval process. And so just because items are allowable, we want to make sure that the approvable part is what we have verified as we are reimbursing a lot of those expenses. And so again, please work with your monitors. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact myself, Katie, Amanda, or Terry to directly to help support with those grants. We also have, go back one slide, Katie, please. We also have our next CTE grant administrators meeting scheduled for April 17th. As Katie mentioned, there will be some submission pieces happening in the spring. This meeting will occur before anything is due, and so we want to make sure that we provide you with the most up-to-date information during that time as well. And so please save this date. Registration links will be coming out through our newsletter and will be posted on our website here shortly as well. And so I'm going to stop the recording here. Thank you all for coming. And then we will take some questions for you too, from you too.